Hi, today we're going to continue our Different or Broken series. We're going to talk about change and adaptability and how that can impact us, those of us with autism. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, maybe the funny. I hope you stick around for that. Welcome back once again to Living with Autism. My name is Michael. I am autistic. And as I told you, we're going to talk about change and adaptability and how I think that can affect those of us with autism and some of maybe the good and the bad, and as I said, some of the funny perhaps that came up in my life and how it relates to change and these kinds of things. And this has been an interesting video. This has been an interesting day. We're in the process of moving. As you're watching this, we are probably right now on the road, or as this video comes out, I should say. I don't know when you'll watch it, but when this video comes out, we are probably actually on the road, on our way to Idaho in our move. And so the house is crazy. There's boxes everywhere, and I need to get out and try to record a few extra videos so that I have some for that time. And today I want to talk about change and how that impacts us. I'm getting ready to move almost over 900 miles away. In my lifetime, this will be the 7th move that I have made of greater than 900 miles. Many of them have been, they've all been at least across state, many of them across nations, across continents, thousands of miles at times. And I have never been in the military. I wasn't a military brat. Only one of those big moves has been made sort of without my consent. The rest of them were all, as an adult, my wife and I making the decisions to move. And so this has been an interesting time in trying to get this stuff together. And a long time ago, I bought a gimbal and I looked and thought about doing some videos outside. I have some gear for doing that. And I thought, you know what, I'm just not feeling it today. I need to record these videos, but I'm not feeling it. Let's go outside and do it. And after I decided to do that, came up with what to talk about. And the next thing I know, and it seemed to mesh, and the next thing I know, all these problems are happening. Finally got out there, and it's so windy, and it's so noisy, and dogs are barking, and people are everywhere. Maybe I'll show you a photo there. The wind is blowing everywhere. What little hair I have left was blowing all around everywhere. It was probably going to be noisy on the microphone. I just wasn't comfortable, and I just said, you know what, this isn't going to work. So I hurried home. As we are right now, I should have left over an hour ago to see my brother. My family is going to hang out with my brother and his fiance just in the last little bit of time that we have before we move. And but here I am, I need to record, so I didn't take a shower. My shirt's probably sticking to me a little bit. Everything is crazy, but that's sometimes what happens, and that's what happens in life. You see, change is inevitable. I may have made multiple decisions, my wife and I together, may have made multiple decisions to move all the way across the country from north to south, from south to north, to different countries. But change just comes anyway. You have to be adaptable. With everything that's going on, I had to change and adapt what I was doing, what I was recording. Tried to make some changes and do something different to maybe emphasize that, because what I planned was so different than I thought it would mesh so well, being in the great outdoors and talking about that in one of these videos. But really, we're not here in this semi-studio because I think it's so awesome. It's just the only place, it's been the only place that I feel is halfway decent for recording. And there's literally in front of me, there are a pile of empty boxes and some full boxes on the couch, and it's just chaos in here other than this one corner. I hope it looks good. I hope I remember to clean up everything behind me. And so that is a part of life. And now maybe we don't move, maybe we can choose not to move, but change is something that is inevitable, or the need to adapt. My family and I, we have every Sunday, we have kind of what we have a tea time. Carries on, my grandmother was English, and we kind of do it up big. We really don't have tea very often anymore. That's kind of adapted. but we have lots of little different foods and different things, okay? And this last Sunday, we didn't have tuna. For whatever reason, it didn't get purchased at the store, whatever's going on, we didn't have tuna. And that was a challenge because there's things that I'm used to. You know, I can make these big cross-country, cross-world journeys, and people are like, man, I don't know how you do that. And then at the same time, something is going on and maybe we don't have something. We don't have tuna. We don't have a particular sauce. We don't have a particular thing that I like to have. And I tell you, I just feel like, oh, I don't even feel like eating anymore. And so it's an interesting thing. We talk about different or broken, right? There's some ways that I think my ability to change is great. And then there's other ways where it's just really hard. This last Sunday, we didn't have tuna. And so it was just like, we did have chicken. There was a little, I couldn't explain to you all of the details of what we do and the effort that mostly my wife puts in to make that possible. Thank you, Jennifer. But it was just a change that I had to make at the last minute on the fly. Wasn't prepared for. There were other problems or other difficulties that were going on. And it was like, how am I going to adapt to this? How am I going to respond to this? And it's really an interesting and difficult challenge because I might be one of the most successful people at moving all across the world and being okay with it. I like new places. I like new things. What I'm nervous about in moving is not so much everything that I have this routine changing. It's more I'm worried about the moving company. Should I have rented a truck or should we use the moving company? What happens if we have more stuff than we planned on? Are we going to have a place to stay? How are we going to pay for it? And these may sound like normal things, but they're like the small things, the smaller details that impact me more than the big details, and everything's changing, leaving all kinds of people. It's not that I don't like the people, the friends and that we know here, but it's just, those aren't the things that impact me so much. So in some ways it's great, and in some ways that's a challenge because my wife, those things impact her a lot. And I have had a hard time in the past. I think I've done pretty well this time, I'm hoping, in being understanding. It's like, you know, what's the big deal? Is just the way I look at it. Like, I don't understand sometimes the things that people are having to change and feels big to them. While I'm making a bigger change and that doesn't bother me, and it's the little things. And so these are interesting challenges that we face and the ways that we're different. And am I different? Yeah. And it's highly successful at times. Am I broken? I think in some ways, yeah. And it's a big challenge at times. We're looking at what we're going to do, and don't want to get into the details of renting a truck. I would have to rent it in Idaho, drive it down, and drive it back. That would be far cheaper than renting it one way from here in California. But basically, I was thinking, and it was the unknown that was the challenge, but I had to come to the decision, you know, what is going to be the thing that is going to cause the least stress so that it is the least likely that I'm going to take out my frustration on my wife or my kids because I'm just panicking. And so change and adaptability works differently for me. But it is something we all have to do. And really, I think part of the reason that I find these steps, that I find doing these things that some people look and say, how do you do that? I think part of the reason that I'm successful at that is because every day I'm having to do a lot of things outside of my comfort zone. And in a lot of ways, my family wanted to take me out to the local botanic gardens here before we left. It's a place that my wife and kids have gone to a couple of times, and they wanted to share it with me. And so there's a lot of ways that just the challenge of doing all that, the unknown, the people I might encounter, all these things, the adaptability that I need to have there is harder for me sometimes in some ways than moving to across the country, because just the way I'm wired, the way I work, and because so often, so many little things cause me to have to get so far out of my comfort zone. I think it gives me this awesome ability to be able to make some big changes because, I've shared before. It's a line I heard a while back on the Bill Cosby show, and I love the line. It says, the kid says, after you've been in the Turkish prison, everything else is easy. And so that's sometimes, I think, how I look at life. It's just change and adaptability. And we might not have barbecue sauce or tartar sauce or cucumbers or Diet Dr. Pepper or tuna or all these different things that in one time or another have been like a huge challenge for me. And I find out at the last minute we don't have this, and it's just like this crushing blow to my very soul. And it feels so hard and so heavy. And I've had to learn how to adapt to those things. And I'm not very successful a lot of times. A lot of times I'm not successful. But I'm learning more and more to be successful. I'm learning more and more to say, hey, let me consider other people. Last Sunday there was a challenge. It's like, I really don't want to hang out. I don't want to all be together. But I thought, you know what? This is important. This is a special time, especially for my little girls. They're not going to understand. And I don't want to allow my emotions to get in the way of their joy. I don't want to just ignore what I'm feeling. But at the same time, I don't want to allow myself to just sort of get down, have a pity party because of the challenge of something that just, bam, hit me in the face, like a water balloon to the face, unexpected. And some of these little things can be. But how do I learn? How do I then move forward? And I want to share one little last piece that I heard today, and I thought it was really neat. I was going through and doing some stuff, and Robert Downey Jr. came up in a way, and so I looked, and I was studying a little bit about his life, about these things, about his past. And it's interesting, if you are not very young, you probably remember all of the difficulties and challenges that Robert Downey Jr. had in the past with substance abuse. He was in like a sort of like rehab jail for a year in the past, and all these challenges that he faced. And I didn't know how it happened. Maybe we just think, and sometimes people are in different ways. You just thought, maybe he's a spoiled, whatever it is, right? But I learned the story, and his dad was a big drug addict. Actually, Robert Downey Jr., was a drug addict basically from the age of 8 because his father gave him drugs. First time he had marijuana, his father gave it to him at the age of 6. And all of a sudden, right, this is a side note, but kind of what we talk a lot about on this channel in some ways. The more we understand each other, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, as we understand each other, all of a sudden we look at people differently. There's a lot more grace for them in their issues. We find ourselves being more compassionate, giving them another chance because we realize, wow, this was a struggle. But Robert Downey Jr. finally changed. Had a girlfriend, lost her because of drug abuse. Had a wife and a son, lost them because of his constant struggle with drug abuse. And he was on Oprah Winfrey, and she was talking, I don't know all the details, I just saw this quote, but asking about the challenge in changing, in getting rid of this drug abuse, this habit that he had. And he said, it's really not that difficult to overcome these seemingly ghastly problems. What's hard is to decide to do it. And that's the thing. We have to decide to be willing to change, to be willing to adapt. I think most of us don't like change in one way or another. There's probably ways we like change. My wife likes to rearrange the furniture. One of the blessings of a small apartment is there's really no other way to have the furniture sometimes. So it didn't work. And my wife, I think, has been gracious as well in understanding my challenges and my dislike of that. But we didn't have any battles over whether or not we were going to rearrange the furniture this last year and a half that we've been here. But some of us really like change in some ways, but I know there are ways that other things about change that my wife doesn't like as well. So change, adaptability, it's a challenge for all of us. It can be a greater challenge, especially in small ways for those of us with autism, and can cause almost a breakdown when things don't go our way. But once we realize the need to change, when I see, hey, this is important, I have to be able to adapt to there not being tuna, for example. I have to, it sounds silly to say, but I have to be able to adapt to these small changes and learn how to do that for myself, for the people around me. Once I recognize that, then I can say, hey, wait a minute, okay, I need to do this. And then these huge problems, as Robert Downey Jr. alludes to, can be very easy to overcome when we just make the decision, the hard decision to say, you know what, it's worth it to me enough. It's worth it enough to me to do it. And so I want to encourage us and let you know what our challenges can be as autistics or as just people in general, right? But help encourage us to be compassionate, understanding with others, and to recognize within ourselves where change, where adaptability is a challenge, but recognize that how we react to change, how we allow that to impact us, can have a great impact on those around us. And these huge problems, these seemingly ghastly problems, as Robert Downey Jr. refers to his drug problem, but these seemingly just huge mountains of uncrossable mountains because we have to change in some way that we don't want to, something went wrong. All of a sudden, they're much easier to cross when we recognize the challenge and we decide, you know what, this is important because the people I care about, whether it's me or my family, those around me, they need me to be able to get through this. They need me to be able to change. And I hope that you are able to overcome those changes, to be adaptable when the situation requires. Well, thanks for joining me. I look forward to seeing you again next time. Until then, take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.